Hello and welcome into Tigers Roar. I am Jonathan Poche, joined by the Budman, Buddy Songy, here from Bayou Smokehouse, 10655 Coursey Boulevard, the best new Baton Rouge barbecue. Come check us out. Great food, great atmosphere. We tape here almost every Wednesday around 4 o'clock. The show will air tonight at 8. Budman's laughing at me already. We had the intro. That was Tamara Mensah Stock, Budman. She was an Olympic gold medal winner in women's wrestling. I want to give her a shout-out because she did an outstanding job with her interview after she won. Proud to be an American, proud to represent. That woman should be a superstar. I wanted to give her a shout-out. Welcome in, Budman. I know we have a lot to talk about.
Well, I was just laughing because, unfortunately, we've been hit and miss with the summertime, and I'm a little congested today, battling some gallstones, but I've got an all-American doctor, and Dr. Joseph Alvergamo, and he's trying to keep me in line. I know a lot of people have been traveling and going to the beach and 30A and Breckenridge and everybody getting their trips in. Well, guess what, folks? We are one calendar month away from LSU going to the Rose Bowl and playing UCLA. Tigers will report tomorrow morning and start practice tomorrow afternoon. We'll start to give you more tidbits, and we will be a little more consistent with Tigers Roar. We're trying to tweak it and get the best of the best, and I'm excited. I think you and I are a little more excited about the Tigers' potential than the Saints. Of course, everybody knows suffering the setback with Miles Brennan breaking, the humerus, and nothing funny about that. Some people think he's going to be out 8 weeks. I'm not a doctor, but I'm hearing longer than that. But there's some positives with all of that. And, of course, since we have last been on, me with you. By the way, you and Taylor did a great job. Thought it was the best Tigers Roar of the year in 2021. So kudos to these young guys. They are the future of Pelican Sports TV.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, buddy.
I appreciate the job you guys both do. But Texas and OU coming in, man. I mean, Jason, who is the husband of our bartender, Julie, he said, I saw love in a bottle, and I was able to land her, and he's the luckiest man in Baton Rouge. Slam, bam, boom. He meets her, they get married, and they have 4 kids. Well, guess what? OU and Texas are coming in, and this thing has been nothing but fast forward. And one of the buddies of mine says, it's not fair them getting into the SEC without having to endure Gary Danielson's trashy broadcast for 14 years. But all of that going on, NIL, recruiting, LSU, Saints, and yes, for those that still believe in the red, white, and blue and the apple pie and the Olympics, it's been some good Olympic stuff to cover as well.
I mean, I haven't paid that much attention to the Olympics. Sadly, in my opinion, it's been one of the least interesting Olympics to me in a very long time, just because all the other stuff that's going on with the politics and what you have to endure when you're just trying to watch the sports. NFL starts this weekend, the Hall of Fame game. Alan Faneca will be enshrined this coming weekend in Ohio. The Cowboys versus Steelers. Football kicks off, as you mentioned, LSU, September 4th. We sit here and tape on August 4th. So, like you said, a calendar month away till the Tigers travel to the Rose Bowl, take on the Bruins of UCLA. You mentioned the big story in Baton Rouge right now. Miles Brennan breaks his arm. No official word of what happened yet. Of course, there's rumors flying around. Miles Brennan, it's his non-throwing arm, but in my opinion, I can't see him playing this season. A lot of people have asked me, well, what's the deal with his eligibility? But man, we'll get into a little bit of that later on in this show. A lot of questions with the quarterback spot. Of course, you have Max Johnson, the son of Brad Johnson, who finished off the season last year, beating Ole Miss and Florida. Finished strong. There's also a walk-on that's going to be having to see some kind of dress-out action at least after you go to Nussmeier, the number 2 now as a freshman. If something happens to those two guys, LSU's in a world of hurt. Now, I don't want to look too far forward, but there's going to be some question marks of who's going to fill out that quarterback room now that Miles Brennan goes down with the broken arm.
But the Tiger fans, by the way, we remind you, this is Old School Barbecue, Bayou Smokehouse, 10655 Coursey Boulevard. Without a doubt, the best brisket in the state of Louisiana. I'm going to take some ribs home. I hadn't got into the ribs yet. Unbelievable pulled pork. We've got some limited chicken. Homemade sausage, incredible sides. The only negative about the sides is they don't put enough potatoes in that order for these kids. They go, where's the rest of the potatoes? They're that good. Unique recipes. Good to have Mama B, Miss B back in the house. and Finn and everybody, come see us over here, 931 9336 for takeout. And along those lines, I mean, you know, I like to give food and football analogies, and I got to be honest with you, I've not talked to many LSU fans that aren't expecting a big year. Now, you mentioned Miles Brennan being out, and we won't get into the particulars, but bottom line is that LSU fans had to endure the same thing in 2018. Joe Burrow came in, won the starting job. Of course, Miles Brennan was second, and then Justin McMillan left and went to Tulane, and of course, Lowell Narcisse went to play with Frank Wilson over at the smaller school in Texas. And so they went from 4 to 2.
Yep.
So now you're with 2. They do have a couple of walk-on quarterbacks that will be some camp arms. But, man, oh, man, we've been talking about it. And, you know, football players all say the same thing, JP. You cannot play the game of football worrying about getting hurt. But when you have 3rd and 4 and he scrambles for a first down, I want Max Johnson to get that pad level and slide and get down. You don't want to be taking any shots,
right.
Clean shots. I've even said, I tell my old lineman, look, I'll give up 10 yards before I give up a clean shot on Max Johnson. But the guy has the it factor. His daddy's been priming him for this. His brother's an incredible high school tight end that's committed to LSU.
Yep.
And I like what Max Johnson brings to the table. He doesn't have the arm strength and the deep ball that Miles Brennan had, but he definitely can go vertical. They're a little weak with numbers at tight end. Running back, don't worry about. And I was watching the last couple of games this week. I don't think people remember, or you will start to remember, but I think people are sleeping on Kayshon Boutte. Do you know what that young man did the last 2 games of the year? He was lights out. So you know UCLA and everybody else is going to double him.
Yep.
But a lot of talent, 6 new coaches. Can they all put it together in a month and put a product on the field? Fox, 7:30. Once again, September 4th. Bama plays Miami at 2:30. Georgia and Clemson at 6:30. LSU and UCLA on Fox at 7:30. My Saturday night's pretty much planned on September 4th.
And you know, Coach O is fired up. SEC Media Days were about 2 weeks ago. He seemed very focused. Back to his 2019 swagger. Look, last year was fractured with the pandemic. Nobody knew who was going to play, when they were going to play, how many games they were going to play. Everything was totally out of whack, including the offseason. There was not a lot of face-to-face time with the players. You had to quarantine everybody, keep them separated. All the testing they had to go through. Look, some of that is going to still be around this year for 2021, but at least they have a little bit of experience dealing with the pandemic under their belt before the season, as opposed to last year when everybody kind of got thrown into this crazy, wild world where nobody knew what was going on. Coach O seems focused. Look, they had a problem with Bo Pelini and the defense last year. I think a lot of that will get fixed. They go back to 4-3, a lot of talent on the defensive line. Of course, you know, the secondary with Ricks and Stingley. That's going to be a very strong suit for the team. You saw what Max Johnson was able to do with those talented wide receivers, including Kayshon Boutte. Scoring the ball is not going to be a problem for this LSU offense. Max Johnson's a very smart quarterback. You mentioned the pedigree with his dad winning the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. The guy's smart with the football. He can hurt you with his legs. He can do it with his feet. But he's going to make the right play with the ball. He's going to check it down when he needs to. You mentioned running back position. It's going to be running back by committee. A lot of talented guys in that backfield. LSU's going to be just fine, I believe. Special teams, Cade York coming back. It's going to be another steady experienced player for the Tigers. Just line up and play. I mean, that's all you can do.
Well, obviously, with the departure of Brennan for the foreseen future here, whether he comes back and heals quickly or not, it's a crapshoot right now.
Yeah.
But I will tell you a couple of positives of this thing. Number one, Max Johnson's not going to be splitting number 1 reps in the fall camp with Miles Brennan. He'll get all of those. Now, you know this. Your boy plays, you played. You got to make sure you got enough camp arms so you don't get the sore arm. Oh, that's not going to happen. Well, it happened to Dak Prescott last week. And so you got to be real cautious about overworking the arm. Nussmeier is a firecracker. Just needs to get bigger, stronger, mature with his body, with age. But you're going to love him when he gets a chance to play. But I think everybody in the room knows it's Max's team now. And I think he's the kind of guy. Look, I called him last year after those 2 wins, a poor man's left-handed Joe Burrow. He's like Burrow. He doesn't have the biggest cannon. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you've seen Joe buffed Burrow, but man, he has done an incredible amount of work.
Yep.
And I just think the Bengals are going to be fun to watch if they can protect him and keep him healthy. That being said, back to Max. Look, the guy's a smart football player, and him and Butte were lights out the last 2 games. So you know that's going to be a good hookup. Got to have receivers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 step up, and there's a bunch of guys in the mix there, including 4 or 5 freshmen. Got to get a left tackle. Dare Rosenthal. We all know that grass is green, and many of you have been frustrated like me. You spend 2 hours, you cut the grass, and then here comes Mother Nature 2 days in a row, and you got to cut it in less than a week. Well, he's going to the Bluegrass State because, as we know, he ran afoul over here with some stipulations, and so he's going to play for Kentucky. So Cam Wire slips in at left tackle, but Cam Wire, even in high school, has had some knee problems before, so you got to find some depth on the offensive line. Running back by committee, listen, I put the tape in with LSU and Alabama, and I'm asking the question over and over again, why didn't John Emery look like this the whole season? He played lights out in that game, JP.
Yep.
And had a great yards per carry. Tyrion Davis-Price, TDP, will wear, of course, 3 and 4 will be your running backs with the numerical numbers. Got some freshmen coming in. This is that money year. When you're juniors, TD Price is in the 220 range. He played at about 230-something last year. Emery got to catch the ball out the backfield better, but these guys could have big years and leave. And then Corey Kiner was the running back that Kevin Falk identified early on as the one he wanted from Ohio. And Armani Goodwin, a sprint champ from Alabama, the state of Alabama, was leaning to Auburn. They got him, and he's kind of like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, short, squatty guy that's hard to tackle, catches the ball. So, look, the offense is going to be fun to watch, but I think the $64 million question, and you mentioned it with Pelini, and I can't say the P word on this show tonight, Pelini, because it's a cuss word to all the LSU fans that by the way, Bo Pelini is writing a book, How to Get $5 Million and Work 20 Hours a Week. I think he spent more time on the golf course than out at LSU football practice last year. But, hey, man, you get a deal, $2.3 million or whatever, and you get $3 or $4 million to go home. I can't gripe because you and I, what do we get? We get a poor boy and an order of fries and some potatoes to leave. Bottom line is that Durante Jones and these defensive coaches want to get LSU fans back to playing LSU defense, which is plenty of hats around the football. Can you put pressure without blitzing? Can you get pressure from that front four? And this is the best front four Coach O's ever had. Obviously, you're going to have lockdown corners, and you got to love Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley and Dwight McLaughlin. Flott's going to be in the slot. Got some safety depth. There is a battle at punter, and there is a battle at a couple other spots, but this team has got a bunch of experience, and if they take care of business that first night, I really see them coming out of the gate 4 or 5-0 and being ranked, right around 10. I think they'll start out. I've got them being preseason 13, 14, 15, somewhere in that neighborhood. But you got to make a statement. You got to go one game at a time, all that sappy stuff. But I'm excited. Saints, on the other hand, worried about Michael Thomas and when he had the surgery, worried about the complementary of receivers, but more worried about cornerbacks and who's going to cover in that secondary. Right. And obviously, who's going to win the job, Jameis or Taysom Hill.
We have a whole lot more here on Tigers Roar, including a segment with Mike Scarborough from TigerBait.com, talk about recruiting. We'll get into some more LSU football right after this break. Don't go anywhere. You are watching Tigers Roar.
Hi, I am Dr. Farrell Frugier Jr., and I am a general dentist at Frugier Family Dentistry. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to Catholic High School, LSU, and LSU School of Dentistry in New Orleans, where I received my DDS degree in 1986. I always have and will continue to be committed to continue my education, to invest in technology, which makes the diagnosis and delivery of dentistry more thorough, more comfortable, and more aesthetically pleasing. In our practice, we are here to serve the patients. We want to improve their quality of life and to develop relationships with our patients. In dentistry, we have a chance to impact lives on a daily basis, not just by doing dentistry, but by getting to know them and being a part of their life. We also believe in giving back to our community. So every year, we give back to the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, Toys for Tots, and Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center. Please stop by and visit our office. We would love to take care of you and your family.
The all-new 22 Civic, now on sale at Team Honda on Siegen Lane.
Hello guys, it's Debbie. It's time. I've got a brand new location. 10510 Airline Highway, Baton Rouge, next to After 5 Tuxedos. We have the perfect spot to get all your wedding and formal wear needs. Come see our one-of-a-kind name brand and get great prices. With 30 years experience, the best customer service anywhere. It's Debbie's Bridal, Airline Highway, Baton Rouge. See you soon.
Hi, I'm Bobby Yarborough with Manda Fine Meats. Here at Manda, we know what the folks of South Louisiana love. They love great flavored smoked sausage, delicious deli meats, and specialty items like boudin and andouille sausage. Manda Fine Meats has been providing these products since 1947. We produce them right here in Baton Rouge, so you know you're always getting the freshest product at your local grocery store. Manda Fine Meats. Taste the fresh local flavor in everything we make. Make it Manda every time.
Live and play on the fairway at Greystone Golf and Country Club, a serene, challenging golf destination located in Denham Springs. For tee times and membership opportunities, go to greystonecountryclub.com.
I miss being over here. Folks, we hope you're doing great this summer. I miss you, JP.
We continue here on Tigers Roar. Buddy Songy in rare form. Come over to Bayou Smokehouse. Check it out in real life. You miss what goes on between the breaks. Buddy, what a character. A national treasure. We're happy to have him. We continue here on Tigers Roar, talking some LSU football. The team will report Thursday, August 5th, begin practice on Friday the 6th. So we're going to talk some preseason projections. But, man, where do you see this team lining up week 1, September 4th against UCLA? We'll start on offense. We already talked about the quarterback position. Obviously, it's Max Johnson's spot to lose. He's not going anywhere. I didn't even know why I said that. It's Max Johnson's spot. Garrett Nussmeier, the freshman, will be the number 2. Let's start the running back spot. You mentioned TDP and John Emery. In your opinion, who gets the first start? Who gets the more carries, more touches in that first week?
You know, we have this discussion every year about this time. I want somebody to step up in fall camp and win the job. But LSU's had a great history of about 20 years of running back by committee. Yeah. Now, Nick Brissett won the job and had 14 rushing touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire won the job in 19 and had 16 rushing touchdowns. Last year, neither Emery or TDP had over 450 on the ground. Oh, by the way, LSU averaged 3.3 yards per carry. 3.3. Yeah. You know what they gave up on defense? Speaking of the P word, 4.9 yards per carry. So the first thing you got to say is, what kind of line of scrimmage are they going to protect Max Johnson, and are the guys going to have some holes to run in? TDP has already lost about 10 to 12 pounds. He looks great shape. You can tell he's smart enough to know this is his money year.
Right.
I think John Emery, we all thought was going to be one of the stars. We've been waiting for him to get more consistent. Put the tape in against Alabama, and you scratch your head and go, why didn't you play like that every game? The one thing that John Emery and TDP don't do really that well, especially in relation to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, catch the ball out the backfield.
Right.
So that's where you bring in Corey Kiner and Armani Goodwin. And I'm a believer, and this is what I like about Max Johnson versus Miles, even though it's not a race anymore. Max Johnson has that little touch, that little dink out the backfield, the bubble, the slant. He can throw it over the top, and he can certainly put some air underneath it, but I like his touch and his accuracy. I think he had 7 touchdowns and 1 INT last year. We know TJ Finley obviously did not take in his patience pills, and so he left for Auburn. And we know that Miles had some excellent stats before he got hurt. So back to the running backs, I expect TDP and John Emery to fight it out to get those first reps. We'll see what happens. I think both of them will play. I think the freshmen are going to come in and maybe have 2 or 3 different plays, whether they catch it out the backfield or whatever.
Yeah.
But you got to remember now, when you're running back, everybody thinks, oh, he runs. Well, you still got to pick up the blitzes and block. You still got to catch it.
Right.
You got to do all the dirty work as well. I'm expecting, and by the way, that position was really hurt and thin for the spring game. So I'm expecting LSU to be appreciably better. And I'd love to see them average 4 yards a carry instead of 3.3.
I mean, both guys kind of complement each other. I mean, they both can run inside the tackles, but they got different running styles. TDP, a bruiser. I mean, the guy's a bull. He'll run you over. And John Emery is kind of like that shifty, break it, a touchdown threat. On every time he touches the ball. Kind of reminds me like back in the day, 2006, they had Lindell White and Reggie Bush in the backfield for USC. One guy was really a dozer. He'd bowl you over close to the goal line, but, I mean, he had Reggie Bush, a little scat back, catch the ball at the backfield, make some guys miss, and take it 70 yards for a touchdown. I think that this group of running backs is that talented. I mean, TDP, the guy's had the body for 3 years now. You just wait for him to get his touches and put it all together. And you mentioned John Emery against Alabama. I mean, that Alabama front is stout. They've always been stout, and he ran very effectively against them. I completely agree with you. If you're at running back position in the SEC, you have to pick up the blitz, and that's where a lot of guys kind of struggle. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was fantastic at picking up blitzes. That's why he could stay on the field all 3 downs. And whatever guy figures that out, kind of working with the quarterbacks, thinking what he sees, what he needs, that's going to be the guy, in my opinion, that's going to get more touches in the game.
Well, you speaking of Emery and TDP, I don't know if you remember this in 2019, but Emery came in and he did not pick up the blitz, and Burrow pretty much pushed him to the sideline and said, GTFO, get the frick out. Yep. You don't know how to pick up and all that. But I do think, JP, they're going to have a better run game. Here's the other thing that's so interesting. And look, we get some right and we get some wrong. But Jake Peets, what do you think he's going to do with play calling? Can they simulate 2019? I was trying to hand it off to you before I sneezed.
That's all right. I mean, look, Joe Brady, this was his guy. He said he will be able to run the offense that I designed very efficiently for you, Coach O, and Coach O trusts him. I mean, Jake Peets, a guy with a lot of experience both in college and the NFL, and gets his shot to be the guy, the coordinator. I think when you have a coaching changeover, complacency kind of goes out the window. You know,
everybody starts at ground zero. Yeah.
You don't do what you were doing last year until you can escape by either by what you've done in the past, or the name on the jersey. You have to prove each and every day, each snap, that you're going to be the best guy for the spot. And I think that's a great thing for the offense and it's for the defense. I mean, new coaches all over the place. Credit to Scott Woodward for really letting Coach O go get some guys that, a lot of young coaches that are going to relate well to these players, know how to motivate them, know how to communicate with them. It's just going to be, in my opinion, a very mantra-like flow to this offense with all these new coaches.
But I was asking you, is the inexperience of him not calling plays at this level, is that going to be a negative? And on the flip side, nobody knows what he's going to
Exactly.
call.
Exactly.
And this is going to be fun. Now, by the way, I want to remind LSU fans that you can get a look-see of UCLA. Really, college football starts August the 28th. Nebraska's at Illinois in the first game. UCLA moved up one of their earlier cupcakes against Hawaii to play them at 2:30 on the 28th of August. So LSU will have tape on them.
Yep.
And as you know, you hear this all the time, you improve more from your first game to your second game. But we don't know if Pete's is going to be on the field, in the locker room, all these things that you work out and get the kinks with.
Right.
I'm excited the fact that Durante Jones and Jake Peets, respectively, the DC and the OC, they don't have a lot of tape on them, and they're going to be guessing. Then you throw in the fact that UCLA was picked 4th in the Pac-12 South. LSU was picked 3rd in the West. I kind of like LSU being in that 13, 14, 15 range because nobody's talking about them.
Right.
And you know who the flavor of the month is?
Yep.
Texas A&M.
Yep.
Well, what have they done since Jimbo's been there? They beat Florida because Florida fumbled and kicked a field goal to beat them. And they had a 9-1 season. But they had to cheat to beat LSU. We were in the same facility doing a post game in that 7 overtime cheat job that they got away with. And then LSU skull drug them 50-7 in 19. Last year, a lot of people think, and of course it's conjecture, if Max Johnson had started that game, maybe LSU would have won. TJ didn't have a great game. So that all being said, I like LSU being a little underrated and people not talking about them. Back to your original question. The running game is going to give Jay, if he can run it when they want to, it's going to give him a lot of impetus to be unpredictable with play calling. And everybody loves unpredictability.
Right. We'll stick with the skill positions, move out to wide receiver. Everybody remembers Keyshawn Bootsy, the freshman from last season, coming in sophomore year. The sky is the limit for that young man. I mean, you look back and watch the tape, what he did in the last 2 games. Outstanding work, not only getting open, but what he did after he caught the ball.
Oh, yeah.
The yards after catch were incredible. I mean, the guy really was a force to tackle after he got the ball with the head of steam. After Keyshawn Bootsy, who's that number 2, number 3 guy? Do you see Kirkland or Moore? What, in your opinion, who's going to be that number 2, number 3?
I think this is where we're going to find that out with the camp starting on Friday. Now, Jeray Jenkins, number 10, had a good year last year. He's not the big, sexy guy that everybody says, wow, he runs 4.4, but he's just solid. He catches the ball over the middle. He'll be in the mix. Coy Moore had his moments at times. He'll wear number 2. Of course, Jontre Kirkland looked like an All-American against Vandy and then kind of went by the wayside. He'll wear number 13. And then you get into Trey Palmer. JP, we talk about this all the time. You're teaching these kids out here to catch a football. You don't let it get to your body. You catch it with your hands. If it gets into the body, the way these guys throw the ball, it bounces off the pads and you don't receive it. If Trey Moore can catch the football with his hands, and, you know, we don't talk about all the ins and outs, but, you know, a lot of people don't realize there's an art to route running.
Yep.
And
Ask Justin Jefferson.
Well, ask Joe Burrow. The biggest change with Jamar Chase now at LSU versus now, he was out a whole year. He opted out.
Yep.
But he is so seamless, him and Jefferson, in and out of their routes. And that's what the good thing about Max getting all the reps is. Each guy's going to tell Max, hey, where are you looking to throw it? When do I make my cut? All the hot receivers. And then you got a handful of freshmen coming in. I'm sure there's a couple other guys.
Devontae Lee back on the
Devontae Lee back. The big Adams kid from Mississippi that played a little bit last year. Chris Hilton is a guy that people locally know. Brian Thomas Jr. is a guy. Jack Besh, this guy right now.
I was going to ask you about
Jack Besh is turning some heads. I think they're going to play him as a big wide and a flex tight end.
Yeah.
And then you still have Malik Neighbors and a couple of more. So I think it's not the numbers at wide receiver. It's who's going to be in the slot, who's going to be your deep threat, and how can they eliminate teams from doubling Keishon Butte?
Right.
Because if I'm UCLA, I double him the whole game. Don't you?
Absolutely. And there's one thing you cannot teach as a coach, and that's speed. And Trey Palmer has speed to burn. And I think that Max Johnson's touch with the football will help Trey Palmer a little bit in his route running because, as you mentioned, sometimes let the ball get too close to his body. The guy's throwing fastballs. That ball will bounce off the pads. I think Max Johnson's touch will only help Trey Palmer. I really do.
Jack Bech, though, getting a lot of pop. And, of course, they'll start for real. We'll start to get to see him. Media is going to be available for individual periods as long as it's not raining. Once it goes inside and they go indoors because of the rain, we don't get to go. But we'll get a chance to see that. We'll have some footage from practice. And I think pitch and catch is going to be fun to watch LSU. You know, when I was looking at the overview, and I do this every year, I go through the stats and see how many sacks and this and that. And that's what I came up with, 3.3 yards per carry and giving up 4.9. LSU's been throwing the football for a lot of yardage. And they only had 9 rushing touchdowns, JP. That's less than 1 a game. Now, granted, they only played 10, and they played nothing but conference games. But I want to see a little more 50-50. But, hey, those receivers, it could be a different guy every week until they find their roles and see where they land on the depth chart.
All right, well, let's move over to tight end. I mean, you mentioned Jack Bech, the guy that I believe will get a lot of playing time at tight end. Maybe that's split tight end, but also play some wide receiver. He's got a great body. I mean, the most accomplished wide receiver coming out of Louisiana in a long time. At STM, played with Walker Howard, had an outstanding career, won 2 state championships, back-to-back junior and senior year. Like I said, I believe he'll get a lot of reps. Cole Taylor is a guy though who's built for the spot. I mean, 6'7". I mean, the guy is big, 243. He can really run. Sophomore season, I think he's going to have a good year at tight end too.
I think he's like me. He put on about 7 pounds in the offseason. And, of course, it means more to Cole Taylor than to me.
Yeah.
He's in the 250 range. Going to be one of the guys that puts his hand in the ground and blocks along with Nick Storrs, the former.
That's a great story, Nick Storrs.
The former baseball player. Right. And so interesting, are you going to use one of those big, ugly D linemen, and I say it affectionately, but Jacoby and Gilry or one of these other guys, or are you going to put a big body? JP, I'd love to sit here and talk all year and not have to recoup where LSU on 3rd and short or 4th and short runs up to the line of scrimmage real quick, does the quarterback sneak, and the fullback comes and tries to push him for the first down.
Right.
I've seen enough of that, especially with Max Johnson now. Last thing you want is him on the bottom of the pile with an injury. So I'm hoping that they got one of those big bruisers as a lead blocker on short yardage. And look, we talk about it every year, folks. In 19, LSU had an incredible percentage of touchdowns in the red zone. Now, Cole Tracy in 18 kicked 29 field goals.
Yep.
So the key with play calling and finishing drives, are they going to settle for field goals, or are they going to have the right plays and have the right playmakers to score touchdowns? It was uncanny how many times they did it in 19, getting scores. Yep. And all of that, of course, is, I guess, wrapped around those big uglies called the O-line, because it starts in the SEC at the line of scrimmage. Yep. And other than Dare Rosenthal, taking a step backwards and having to leave and go to Kentucky, if they could just get 8 or 9 that they're confident of, and that's 3 or 4 backups, then I kind of like the potential on this offense.
It's a great segue to the offensive line. I mean, led by the center, Liam Shanahan, a guy who's played tons of football. He's played every snap for the Tigers in 10 games last season. He'll be the anchor. He'll help with the calls at the quarterback. He got a little rapport with Max Johnson at the end of last season. He will anchor that offensive line. You mentioned the left tackle, Dare Rosenthal out. Cameron Wire expected to fill that slot at left tackle. But let's go down the board. Left guard, who you got?
Ed Ingram.
Ed Ingram.
Ed Ingram has got a chance to make, and he's already made all SEC. Shanahan, to me, is the most important guy to keep healthy.
Yeah.
Because this guy from Boston, I mean, you got to love it. Came over from Harvard, stuck around to come back. Oh, by the way, Austin Decklis was the main reason all those guys talked. Deck looks great. This guy is a fan favorite. He has a chance, if he stays healthy and plays this season to play in more games than any LSU Tiger
Is that
ever.
crazy? Yep.
And so the right guard is Chasen Hines, who had a basketball in his belly last year in his uniform. A lot of those guys were overweight because they didn't have the training table.
Right.
They didn't have any semblance of normalcy. Garrett Dellinger is the true freshman that they got from the state of Michigan. They like him. He's going to compete. Anthony Bradford, another big guy that is from the Midwest. Huge guy, 360, 365. They want him to get down a little bit. Thomas Perry's going to get a chance. Marcus Dumerville's going to get a chance. Xavier Hill, Marlon Martinez. You got to find 8 or 9 or 10 because you always have injuries. And this is a team, oh, by the way, the last 2 national championship teams, Alabama last year and LSU in 19.
Joe Moore.
They won the Joe Moore Award.
Sure
It just
did.
goes to show you how important that O-line is.
The guy I get asked about all the time, and I really don't have any answers, Cardell Thomas. I mean, so highly recruited out of high school, chose LSU, came in overweight, to a nice way to put it. What is his story? Is he working to get some playing time? What's going on with Cardell Thomas?
You know, it's you talked about being overweight and heavy, but he got hurt. And him and Thomas Perry, they absolutely loved both of those guys coming in a few years ago.
Yep.
And they both had serious injuries. And neither one of them have been able to shed off that and play up to their capabilities. So right now, I would say this is put up or shut up time for some of those backup offensive linemen. Now, we know NIL. And by the way, my appearance tonight is sponsored by Amanda Fine Meats, where flavor and spice really do say it all. And you are sponsored today by Bayou Smokehouse, best barbecue in all of Baton Rouge, 831-9336. And look, if the guys can get NIL deals, then you and I can as well.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
But I think Cardell Thomas has got him a nice little NIL deal. And so we're going to broach that subject. Do you think it's going to be a problem in the locker room? Now, Miles Brennan and Mike Hollingsworth is one of the great, nice guys in this town and been around for a long time with Hollingsworth, Richards, Fords. You saw the deal with him and Miles. People asking, where's he going to lose that NIL deal? No, he's not. Those guys are giving that money and that sponsorship to those players because they like the way they handle themselves, and they like the way they portray their companies. But I think Cardell Thomas did get him a little bit of some NIL money. And I'm of the belief that, Coach O says, hey, I'm all for the players, but you better go to school and you better worry about the team first than worried about what kind of NIL deal. I'm just wondering if this thing's going to get out of control where there's going to be some problems in the locker room. Right. And a guy says, man, I got 10 grand from Spanky's. Another guy says, no, man, I got 50 grand from whatever. This is a new day and age, but we're all in a different world here. Yeah. And the potential is there for these kids all to be happy, but there's also some potential serious problems. And I hope that, once again, if you get back to communication and trust, everybody's going to be happy. But look, you got to win the first game, and then you got 2 games to tweak your lineup on offense, whether that's giving Nussmeier a couple reps in those cupcakes. No disrespect to McNeese and Central Michigan, but LSU's going to be favored by 30-plus points in those games, right?
Coach O coaching against his son at McNeese. Chase Ogeron's quarterback for McNeese this season.
I don't think, that'll going to be funny if Durante Jones calls a full safety blitz and O says, hey, that's my boy back there. Don't hit him too hard.
I like Coach O also throwing some shade at Nicky Sabian when he was talking to the Baton Rouge Rotary Club, saying, look, all the sponsorship out there, if you want to pay our guys, please do it. They got other coaches out there bragging about how much money their kids are making. So,
well,
hey.
but that goes to show you the brilliance of Nick Saban. Now, it was Tuesday, the second day of the SEC Media Days. He's going to talk to the Texas High School Association. All those coaches in there, there's probably some high school athletes in there watching. And he, by the way, casually mentions, by the way, our quarterback, who's never played a starting snap for us, has deals already up to about $1 million, 7 figures. And everybody went, what? Yeah. I'm going to Alabama. Yep. Of course, he got to media day the next day, and he toned it down a little bit. But bottom line is this is another new thing that coaches are going to have to monitor. It's another new thing the NCAA is going to have to legislate. And as we know, many times, more often than not, we say no clue at all when we're talking about the NCAA. Mark Emmert's making 2.9, and I appreciate Mark Emmert because he brought in Nick Saban. He woke up the sleeping giant, did a lot of great things. But they wanted Congress to handle all this, and so we're kind of uncharted territory. Then you throw in Texas and Oklahoma coming in. Man, you better keep up with JP and Taylor and me because the times, they are changing.
We have a lot more here on Tigers Roar. After this break, we'll get into the defensive side of the ball. Don't go anywhere. He's Buddy Songy. I'm Jonathan Poche, and you are watching Tigers Roar.
Creel Tree Service is a licensed and insured tree service providing tree and stump removal, topping, trimming, cabling, pruning, and fertilizing. We have free stump removal with takedowns, free estimates, affordable rates, and senior citizens discounts. Call 774-TREE. That's 774-8733. Get your yard ready for the warmer weather. If it deals with a tree, call me, Creel Tree Service, 774-8733. That's 774-TREE.
Hi, I'm Hurricane Betsy Barnes.
And I'm Dr. Kay Siller with the Rocket Right Show.
We are two busy blondes on the go showing off life in Louisiana.
Watch us on Pelican Sports Network.
And Talk 107.3 FM. Check local listings for times.
Hello, guys. It's Debbie. It's time. I've got a brand new location. 10510 Airline Highway, Baton Rouge, next to After 5 Tuxedos. We have the perfect spot to get all your wedding and formal wear needs. Come see our one-of-a-kind name brand and get great prices. With 30 years experience, the best customer service anywhere. It's Debbie's Bridal, Airline Highway, Baton Rouge. See you soon.
Go where summer leads you in an award-winning Mazda CUV. Find yours during Mazda's season of discovery.
Call, click, or come by and discover your new Mazda today at Baton Rouge's Mazda dealer. Team Mazda on Airline.
Caught spiders. Premier Pest Services.
I've seen a lot of things during my life, more bad things than good. I've lived in a lot of places, but never a home. I don't think anybody cares about me anymore. And now, I'm tired. Signed, Brian, age 11.
Abused and neglected children in East Baton Rouge Parish are in dire need of CASA volunteers. Please call 379-8598 today. Change a life of hurt into a life of hope.
Hello. Hola. 你好.
Experience what the Baton Rouge International School can offer your children. Now welcoming displaced students for short and long-term stability.
Here on Tigers Roar. Forgot to mention, Buddy brought his best friend. You could just missed it under the graphic there. Roger Goodell's shirt is back. That means football's back, bud, man. When you bust out the Roger Goodell shirt, football's back.
You know, the one thing, when was it, when they have the remote draft? Was that 2020? I hated that they didn't have the big booth session, the booth festival with Roger Goodell. They're still doing it with the NBA commissioner. But NFL, real quick, well, we're going to talk LSU, but real quick, 17 games, and it looks like there's obviously some controversy, a lot of people, and we do not come in here and say, you got to get the vaccine, or you say, I don't want to get the vaccine. I mean, that's a decision everybody's got to make, but you saw the Minnesota coach that didn't get it, and he got his pink slip. And we are even talking to people, and whether you get in the press box or whatever, I mean, you know, it's getting more and more constant that you're going to have to get this vaccine to get some of the regular perks. That all being said, I just hope that we can get back to 100% attendance, because that was not anything to even hold on to last year, seeing Tiger Stadium a shadow of itself.
No.
I just hope and pray that we can get this thing under control, because this is one deja vu I do not want to go through.
My biggest problem still with the whole pandemic in sports, Drew Brees did not get his curtain call in the Superdome. Now it's the Caesars Superdome officially.
Yeah.
Mercedes-Benz is gone. They're done. Now it's the Caesars. I still think there is a huge opportunity, even though Smoothie King was started here in Louisiana, to call that Smoothie King Center Little Caesars. I mean, you got to make that happen. Caesars, Little Caesars, makes too much sense. All right, Joe, right back into LSU football. Some preseason projections for positions. On the defensive side of the ball, we'll start up front, Bud, man. Defensive end, returning a lot of guys on that side of the ball, especially up front. But go ahead and run through the top two defensive ends.
You know, when you were young and you could drink as much as you want and you'd wake up without a hangover?
You used to be young.
No, you remember when you could drink and not have a hangover?
I remember, but man, I remember.
And you would get really loaded.
Not me, but yeah, I know people. I know people used to do that.
LSU's loaded on the defensive line.
Yeah.
And Ali Gay is number 11, and he is going to be held a block from the edge. Of course, Neil Farrell and Glenn Logan come back at the D tackles, and then Andre Anthony coming back for his 6th year because of the COVID and all the other stuff. That's your front four starters right now.
Yeah.
But B.J. Ojulari wearing number 8. Now, is he going to look as good as Patrick Queen looked wearing number 8? I don't know, but I'm going to tell you he's going to get a bunch of sacks. Then you got Mason Smith, the first guy ever to have the kahunas to wear the 0.
Yep.
When you're 6'6",
that's a big number, 0.
315, and you're wearing 0, man, you can play.
This guy's got swag.
Because if you couldn't play, if you were 0, you wouldn't grab it.
Right.
Jay Roy, Jaqueline Roy, lit up in the spring, and then you get into some of the other guys, Sony Fanoa, and then you get into more of the freshmen coming in. Savion Jones is a beast. I mean, they are, and oh, by the way, Joseph Evans is the guy that Coach O's always talking up. So they really are almost 3 deep across. This will be the best defensive line Coach O has had in his tenure as the head coach. And here's the question. Is he going to be able to line up with just 4
Get the pressure
and put pressure on the quarterback? Because there's been a lot of years where you had to have the delayed blitz, you had to send the corner from the edge, you had to send the linebacker or the safety. This is going to be a lot of fun. It's a 4-3, but as we know, most teams in the SEC spread you out with a bunch of wide receivers, so it's going to be basically a 4-2-5.
What a deep group this is. I mean, what an excellent mix between experienced players and young guys coming in with loads of talent and size. I mean, Coach O could not be a guy that loves defensive line. He could not be, in my opinion, in a better spot with a mix of experience and youth, talent across the board. I mean, Ali Gay, a guy that really blew up on the scene in just a couple games. And then, you bring in Roy and Smith, and these guys are freshmen. They look like grown men. I mean,
and you keep them fresh, JP.
Right, you can rotate them
instead of a guy playing 68, 70 snaps, you got to play a guy plays 45, another guy plays 20, 25. Right. It keeps people fresh. And, of course, they will have the cheetah package, which is their 4 best pass rushers.
Right.
And they're really going to get after people. Obviously, there's some questions about linebackers. And you got a couple new guys coming in. Damone Clark, he wore 35 as a sophomore. He wore 18 last year. And we go back to that P word. Him and Pelini didn't fry fish.
Right.
Pelini said it was Wednesday, August the 4th at 4:45 or whatever. I don't think Damone Clark would have believed him. There was just no trust, no communication. It was a bad deal.
Right.
Damone Clark he just didn't look right. So this is a big year for him. He'll wear 18 again. Micah Baskerville did have some academic issues. He took care of those. And then Bug Strong is this junior college linebacker that was committed to Mississippi State. 6 foot, 6 foot and a half, about 220. And Mike Jones, the guy from Clemson that can run. Mm-hmm. You have other guys like Greg Penn III and others coming in. So you got a lot of depth there. We'll see what kind of but you're usually only going to see LSU most of the time with 2 linebackers.
Right.
And the guy who can stop the A-gap and cover in space, that guy's going to play a lot this year.
Right, somebody's got to fill the shoes of Jabril Cox. I mean, the guy did a great job covering it in the linebacker spot last season. Damone Clark, you mentioned, had an off year. I mean, you saw a lot of 18 chasing the ball last year, not really filling the hole. Had a lot of assignment miscommunications at the linebacker spot last season that really led to some big running gains by the other team. The opposing team goes into the yards per carry that you mentioned earlier. Who's going to fill that hole left by number 19, Jabril Cox? Mike Jones, an excellent cover linebacker coming from Clemson. I think he will play a significant role in this defense. And hopefully Damone Clark can turn things back around, get back to the way he played as a sophomore.
And then you get into the back end, and look, we know that was a mess last year because of all the injuries for the first game. Stingley was out. Jay Ward was hurt. They had a bunch of guys dinged up. They had to throw Darren Evans, who had only been at LSU for a couple of weeks, out on the field against Mississippi State. It was sad to see because he was in over his head with no preparation. But how about these three cover corners? Number 1, Eli Ricks. Number 7, Derek Stingley Jr. And a guy who looked really good in the spring game, number 2, Dwight McLaughlin. Mm-hmm. Now, look, we know that Stingley already has the NIL deal, and he's probably going to get more. Wow. But what's Der Wiener Schnitzel or Sonic waiting on? Come on, get a deal with Eli Ricks, and he can sit there and come on TV and say, I'm the best hot dog on this team, and I like it with extra mustard. As you know, he had 4 picks last year, 2 to the house. Touchdowns. And you remember what he did? He high-stepped it, and they chewed on him. I hope he doesn't get a touchdown call back. But listen, that guy, I affectionately call him a hot dog, he's got swag, he's got length, he's got ball skills. And you know there's got to be a side bet with him and Stingley this year on who's going to get the most INTs. So who do you throw at? Do you stay away from Stingley and go after Ricks or McLaughlin? I think the guy that will get picked on is the guy who's in the slot, the nickel slot, Cardell Flott. And you know, we'll find that out. Safeties, you got a lot of young guys coming in. Jay Ward's going to play your nickel safety. You're free. And then you got Derek Davis Jr., a kid that came in early. Sage Ryan coming in. Jonathan Tolles.
Todd Harris, Major Burns.
Well, Todd Harris has been fighting some injuries, but Major Burns is the guy that people, he was a Baton Rouge kid. LSU messed up and let him get away to Georgia and got him back. So they've got a lot of bodies. Once again, now Durante Jones is coaching the safety. So last year, I was disappointed with the safety play. And as we always talk about, turnover ratio. You want to catch those INTs, not drop them. You want to force more fumbles. You want to have ball security. JP, I'm looking back all through the stats for the years. The great teams at LSU always are plus 20 or more with turnover ratio. So if you're going to turn it over and give it away 10 or 15 times, that means you got to have about 35 takeaways.
Right.
And I think this is going to be fun to see who they try to pick on because that's a stellar. I don't think Coach O and Durante Jones would trade McLaughlin, Stingley, and Ricks for any 3 in the country. Do you?
Right. No, I mean, the strong point on this team is defensive secondary. They will have a lot of takeaways this season. Where do you go with the football? I mean, Stingley's on this half, Ricks is on the other half, and then you have very talented safeties and a good corner, a good nickel corner. So, yeah, not a lot of places to throw the ball. LSU's going to see a lot of screen passes, a lot of dinks and dunks. They're not going to be able to stretch the field too much on this side of LSU defense. And look, have not played a snap yet in 2021, but going into the season, there isn't a team in the country that feels better about their defensive secondary than LSU does.
Yeah, and look, crazy stuff happened last year with Stingley. He had a bad year. He wasn't into it. Once again, this is his money year. Now, I broached this subject on the show today, and we talked about it a couple times. A, do you keep Stingley back as a punt returner? And he's been a little bit of a disappointment as a punt returner. I think we'll all agree. Not picking on you, Derek, but it just doesn't seem like he ever has enough room. I don't know if they're not blocking well enough.
But he catches the ball.
He catches the ball, and that's the first thing that a coach wants.
Right.
But I want to see Sting take one to the house like the great punt returners that LSU's had in the previous years do. But lo and behold, do you get a little crazy after you have one too many in the press box and say, let's bring him in on a wide receiver reverse. Let's throw him the ball in space.
Right.
Do you look at him on offense a few games and plays, or is he too valuable to risk that?
No, there's been some rumblings. I'm sure everybody's heard. They've been considering putting him on some offensive plays, and if nothing else, use him as a decoy.
Absolutely.
You're gonna pay attention when number 7 goes on the field. The guy's so athletic. A dangerous return man. Even though we haven't really seen a lot of it at LSU yet, I believe this year he does break at least one, maybe as high as I'm taking him to get 3 returns for touchdowns this season.
Stingley? Well,
Trey Palmer's also going to get 2. 5 returns for touchdowns. You heard a bold prediction right now.
Man, I tell you what, I got to get some more of this water.
But sticking with special teams, we know Cade York going to be the place kicker, guys, as reliable as it comes right now.
Oh, man, that 57-yard. I've watched that 57-yard in the fog probably 10 times.
You can't even see.
It could have been good from 63.
You can't even see the uprights, and he drains it in the swamp, in the fog, with the game coming down to an end. Does not get bigger, especially when you have such a tough season the whole time. You're finally in a game at Florida, new quarterback. That's pressure. Okay, in the fog, 57. That is pressure. Steel cojones on that kid.
Yeah, and listen, I loved it at media days. The Florida guys that were all there said, "We can't wait to go play LSU and kick their butt." I don't know what kind of little things you're putting in your drinks over in Florida. I don't know if it's daiquiris or shots or what, but I don't look at Florida as coming in here and beating LSU this year. They're calling it LSU, SHOE. I don't look. I think it's fair to say LSU's not going to have another player help them win a game the way that happened last year. But that being said, Cade York is so good. I had a guy actually call in and say, I know this is going to sound crazy, but do you think he could leave after his junior year? And I said, gosh, I hope not.
Right.
But that's how good he is. And I'm not going to prod you with a little thing and remind you when the Saints picked Russell Erxleben with their number 1 pick many, many years ago, and he really didn't turn out to be that good. Kickers usually are not picked if they are late in a lot of free agent deals. But York, now you're going to have a new holder. Don't know who the holder will be. Quentin Skinner is still, can you believe that this is about 11 years straight that LSU has a snapper from Buford, Georgia.
Right.
The Fergusons were like 9, and this is like his 2nd or 3rd year. Yeah. They do a great job there. Got a great kickoff man. You love 32. But Peyton Todd, we thought was going to be the punter. 32 is competing as the punter, too. So that is a job up in the air. Who's going to win the starting punter? I will say this. LSU special teams have been pretty darn good with Greg McMahon leading the way ever since they got him 3-4 years ago.
Absolutely. Have a lot more here on Tigers Roar. Don't go anywhere. Coming up, we have a very special segment with Mike Scarborough from TigerBait.com. We'll talk to you about recruiting and all things LSU football. Before we take this next break, we'll remind you guys that we're here at Bayou Smokehouse, 10655 Coursey Boulevard, the home of old school barbecue. Buddy, you mentioned the best brisket in Louisiana, hands down, no doubt about it. Great ribs, great sides. My favorite is the homemade mac and cheese and those bourbon baked beans. Bud, man.
Talk about good.
Oh, my goodness. Come check it out. Bayou Smokehouse, once again, 10655 Coursey Boulevard. It's where we shoot all the shows right here on the set that you see. Also, don't forget to check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Pelican Broadcasting. A great archive to go find all the shows that we do here at Pelican. We got the Clarence Bugs, the Exiles. A big welcome back to Kevin Gallagher on the Exiles. We sure missed you, Bud. Happy you're back. Of course, that's also with Bill Profita and the Rocket Right Show with Betsy Barnes and Dr. K. Solar. We're also going to be kicking off some few things now that football season is getting back and going. Looking forward to see Coach Roger Kadar back on set, hopefully sooner rather than later. He's always a fun time. But go check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Pelican Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more here on Tigers Roar coming up right after this break. You're watching Tigers Roar.
Taste the feeling.
Hi, business owners. Phase 3. Woohoo! But do your customers know you're back? Well, that's where the Clarence Bugg Show and Pelican Broadcasting can help. Right now, we've got great rates on advertising packages to help you get the word out. Shoot me an email at bugsclarence@gmail.com. Or better yet, call me up. I'd love to talk with you. 225-485-6839. Let's get together and make Phase 3 the best it can possibly be.
Bolello's Furniture and Appliances, your dependable independent.
Depend on us for service, for selection, for price.
Get huge Whirlpool savings. Shop now and save on Whirlpool appliances throughout the store. Plus, experience our price match guarantee and ask about special financing.
You can depend on the know-how of people who live appliances every day.
Bolello's Furniture and Appliances, your dependable independent with nationwide buying power.
Hi, I am Dr. Farrell Frugier Jr., and I am a general dentist at Frugier Family Dentistry. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to Catholic High School, LSU, and LSU School of Dentistry in New Orleans, where I received my DDS degree in 1986. I always have and will continue to be committed to continuing my education, to invest in technology which makes the diagnosis and delivery of dentistry more thorough, more comfortable, and more aesthetically pleasing. In our practice, we are here to serve the patients. We want to improve their quality of life and to develop relationships with our patients. In dentistry, we have a chance to impact lives on a daily basis, not just by doing dentistry, but by getting to know them and being a part of their life. We also believe in giving back to our community. So every year, we give back to the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, Toys for Tots, and Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center. Please stop by and visit our office. We would love to take care of you and your family.
We continue here on Tiger's Roar. Lucky to be joined by the man himself, Mr. Mike Scarborough from TigerBait.com. Good evening, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Happy to have you with us. It's been a whirlwind of recruiting these last couple of weeks. A lot of official offers going out, a lot of guys committing, including one from 2023, the first commit LSU has received for the 23 class. Just give us a brief overview about everything going on and how you've been the last couple of weeks.
Well, you know, the biggie, obviously, on Friday was Emory Jones. Of course, you know, we've been projecting him to LSU for quite some time. And he's just a fantastic offensive guard, one of the best in the country, a big need position, a banner year in Louisiana, 4 offensive linemen. So now he's one of 4, along with Will Campbell, Bo Bordelon, and Fitzgerald West. And so we'll see if there's a 5th or a 6th offensive lineman out there for this year. And then, as you mentioned, Omarion Miller, the 4-star wide receiver from Vivian, Louisiana, North Caddo High School, is the first commitment for the class of 2023. And, you know, you're talking about a 6'2", 190-pound receiver that afforded himself very well at the June Ed Orgeron camp.
Mike, we didn't get a chance to ask you this, but I did have a late message after the show today. People wanting to know, is it too early, or you're starting to see the impact of Brad Davis and him, the guys that he was recruiting over at Arkansas? Is there a chance that they can flip anybody? And what's he been like as far as enticing And I know LSU's already had 4 big uglies pretty much committed and ready to go. But what's Davis going to be like as a recruiter? People want to know.
Yeah, I think it's a little early, but you know, one of the things I was saying was let's see who he brings in for Boys of the Boot. Well, he brought in a couple of 2023 kids that had really good visits. He had the big Miles McVeigh from East St. Louis.
Yeah.
Of course, that would be one of his kids, having been in Arkansas. And then Caden Green from Lee Summit, Missouri. So, you know, 2 kids from Missouri that you got to believe those were his guys, and we know it were his guys that he was pursuing while at Arkansas. So now we fast forward and think about once the season starts and who's on the sideline for unofficial visits. But I still don't know what the protocol for that's going to be. And now we got the you know, the Delta variant and all that. You know, what do you do if you're Ed Orgeron? You know, is there going to be some? I'm worried that there might be some issues with visits in the fall. I wonder if we're going to see something.
Issues with what?
I'm worried that there's going to be issues with official recruiting visits.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, what do you do on a game weekend if you've got some kid flying in from out of state? And, you know, how do you put them through COVID protocols? You know, do they get tested before they get on a plane? What do you do when they get there? Do you necessarily have them mingle with players? I mean, that's one of the things that you do during official visits. They get to go in the locker room and stand on the sideline.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
So, yeah.
Mike, one of the guys you talked about up front, Will Campbell, I follow a lot of different outlets on social media. He pops up on pretty much all of them, and looks like he's dominating in these camps he's going to. I mean, is there an offensive lineman you can remember who's been like this on fire with social media? I mean, the guy's a beast.
Yeah. Look, It's not very often that you have a big-time offensive tackle in the state of Louisiana, and I mean you've got to go back really a decade to, you know, Lyle Collins, and then even then there was some debate whether he was definitely a tackle, was he maybe a guard? Then you had Cam Robinson, and before that you had Greg Robinson down at Thibodeau that ended up at Auburn.
Yeah.
Who Frank Wilson swore up and down he wasn't going to lose to Auburn, and then 2 days later he committed Auburn. But that's for another day.
It seems like he's got that country strong build. I mean, barely has a belly on him, but he's got that nasty, that gritty, that mean, tough guy, that bulliness that you want in an offensive tackle. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, he's very much a competitor. You know, saw him in person at Karen Crow when they got absolutely blown out in that playoff game, and I'm telling you, he was sick about it. And you know, I'm not sure what Neville's going to have this year, but I know most of their team was juniors on that team. But he's just very much a competitive kid. So,
yeah.
And again, him and Walker Howard are very close, and he spent a lot of weeks down in Lafayette this summer. So he's been working out with Walker and I guess all the STM football players while he's been in Lafayette.
Mike, obviously Citizen committed to LSU a week or two ago to running back. We didn't ask you about Law and some of the other RBs, and certainly for our TV audience, if you could give us a Le'Veon Moss update.
Yeah, I mean, look, Citizen, you know, some people will say he's the number 1 running back in the state. Then you can go not far east from there to Jennings. There's going to be people in that area who's going to say it's Etienne. And then you've got some people here that think it's Moss. So, but LSU's certainly glad to have Citizen on board, because before he came to LSU in June, there was a lot of scuttlebutt coming out of Lake Charles that he was going to go out of state. And, of course, we all know the first morning that the dead period ended, he was there with his teammate Curly Reed, the cornerback for next year, that got an offer. So, big pickup. And then, you know, Le'Veon Moss, of course, kind of shocked everybody that Sunday of the first weekend of camp. And he was in Tuscaloosa and committed to Alabama. but we've been kind of saying for several weeks now that, you know, he's could possibly be flipping to LSU. And then last weekend, you know, Friday morning, Jacoby Matthews, a Ponchatoula decommits from LSU, goes to Texas A&M for their junior day, and Le'Veon Moss is with him. So I think there's going to be so many twists and turns. You got a bunch of kids out there maybe getting bad information on NLI, and I think you're also seeing where not only has that spigot been turned on, but it's also having a whole lot of people thinking it's the Wild Wild West and anything goes. And I think there's going to be a lot of stories to be told in the coming months.
And along those lines, Mike, people not freaking out, but certainly there's some concern now that LSU with the Miles Brennan injury down to two scholarship quarterbacks. It also was that way in 2018 with Burrow and Brennan 1-2. What do you think? Because you got to catch 22, JP and Mike. Very seldom, just like Arch Manning. Let's take Arch Manning. He's not coming to LSU with Walker Howard and all that quarterback talent in front of him. Now, Max Johnson's brother's coming over here, and trust me when I tell you they're on the same page, pitch and catch. He's a great tight end. So Max has got a little time. Then you got Garrett Nussmeier, who wants to get some throwaways and PT this year at mop-up duty. Then you got Walker Howard coming in. So I say he's not coming. I know you still think that Arch likes LSU, but my question is this. How do you stockpile quarterback depth when nobody wants to follow other great players because they want to go to a place just like Holstein going to A&M? How do you stockpile quarterback depth, or is this something that the coaches and fans are going to have to live with moving forward?
Well, and look, I think that's part of it. One of the first things that I've heard early in the week after the news of Brennan is that his parents were inquiring and looking into what his eligibility is going to be. And, of course, he's already redshirted. You get a free COVID year. Now he's hurt again. Can he get that extra medical year that we've seen them grant so many times? So all of a sudden, Miles Brennan, is he trying to go for 7 years? And then what does that do to a Nussmeier and his thought process with Walker Howard coming in midterm, and whether whatever happens with Arch Manning? Of course, Holstein's already committed to A&M, and then you got Ricky Collins that's got the offer from Woodlawn Baton Rouge, who's highly likely to be the guy the following year. So sometimes you just kind of wonder if Miles' shot because of this injury. It's a tragedy, but it's almost like you wonder, depending on how it plays out, does this somehow actually just kind of push him out the door?
Yeah.
Mike, a big story that broke. Texas and Oklahoma will be joining the SEC in the upcoming future. A question I keep getting asked is, how is that going to affect recruiting in the SEC? My answer has been, look, these brands are national brands. They're recruiting against all the high-powered programs. But our further question to you, how does Oklahoma and Texas coming into the SEC affect recruiting for teams like LSU?
I'm a little skeptical that it changes anything. I don't. When Texas is losing a kid to Oklahoma or Texas A&M because they haven't been in the SEC, who were those kids? I don't know that just if you go down the line of who LSU's gotten out of the state of Texas since A&M joined the SEC, how many of those their second favorite school was Texas? I'm unaware of any, and I don't know that the SEC does that much for them. I think I'm skeptical of what it actually does for Texas's football program, because I think once they get inserted into the SEC, they're right there with Ole Miss and Auburn.
Well, the interesting thing with all of this, and I kind of said it as a joke, and then Coach O goes to the Rotary Club, and we go all across the state with this show. And if you are an LSU fan and a business, and you live in the state of Texas, you might be called upon to give a little NIL money because, Jonathan, that's what's going on right now. These kids come in, and now some of them are getting paid a nice little envelope to actually just visit. And let's be honest, this is an arms race. And Texas got a lot of money.
Yep.
And Oklahoma got a lot of money. And Texas A&M got a lot of money. And so...
And I think what you're going to see is...
LSU better have a lot of money.
Remember Leonard Fournette and the whole deal with him building a brand while he was in high school?
Booger Nation, yeah.
You're going to see that on a scale like you've never seen before because it's starting right now.
Yep.
Holy cow, Booger and Joe Burrow would have made probably Bryce Young $1 million money.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm talking about where they're getting they're getting brand outlets to create logos and
sure.
web design and like they're professional athletes. And so look, it's always been a deal as a media member. And even, fans calling into call-in shows or on message board. Man, you're not really supposed to hold college athletes to the same standard as professional athletes. Well, they are professional athletes now. And so it's, how much of there's some good of this that comes with it, but I also think these kids also need to be prepared for a whole lot of scrutiny. And also, what does this do for a guy like Karam over at LSU, who's his job to help these guys manage their media? How much harder does it make his job? Because they've always had the policy at LSU that you can't interview freshmen. Well, we've seen now with TexAgs.com giving NLI money to players at Texas A&M for exclusive interviews. Are they able to stop me from having an exclusive NLI deal with Tiger Bait with a true freshman? Are they even able to have any say in that anymore?
Hey, people want to know what number they're at right now for this 2022 class, and if you're still thinking that you feel pretty confident it's going to be a top 3, 4, or 5 class, Mike.
Yeah, 16 total right now. It was 17. It was 16 Friday morning, then it wasn't, then it was 15, and then it was 16 at the end of the day with Emory Jones. And yeah, I do. I don't see this class being any less than 3 or 4 in the country. There's just too many good players on the board, and I still like LSU's likelihood of getting Matthews back on the commitment list at some point. And then Quincy Wiggins, I think, is going to continue to scale the recruiting rankings. That's going to be a big shot in the arm. Shaz Preston is lights out. I like where LSU sits with him. Kendrick Law's out there LSU battling Alabama for him. So
Jamon Tapp also.
Jamon Tapp. And so there's a lot out there out of state as well.
All right, Mike, certainly appreciate you spending some time with us here on Tiger's Roar. Before we let you go, tell everybody about TigerBait.com and how they can subscribe today.
Go to TigerBait.com, choose the annual package. You save 3 months when you do that. You only get billed one time. You get our text alerts for breaking news, our newsletters, all our recruiting information, and check out our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel where we're doing live shows all the time now, and our audience is growing. So go to TigerBait.com, subscribe. You're going to enjoy the website.
Keep up the great work, Mike. We'll see you tonight, man.
Okay, man. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
And JP, it is a very, very tough business to try and ascertain who's telling you the truth, who's going to change your mind. Mike talks to moms and dads. He talks to coaches. He talks to players. He talks to a lot of people. And he's really been locked in on a lot of these guys. And it's kind of good. You call up the recruiting guy and says, hey, man, what's going on with Jacoby Matthews or Kendrick Law or whatever? And let's be honest now, I don't think any of us know to what extent at this point what this NIL money is going to be, how much of a factor is it going to be. And I'm not going to bring a guy into the discussion, but I did have a guy tell me that a high school player in Louisiana went on a visit a couple weeks ago, and that school told him, oh, by the way, if you come here, we got an NIL sponsor for you to the tune of $500,000. Now look, they've always been getting paid under the table.
Yeah.
Always
every
seen
program.
the cars and
Yeah.
the suits and
Right.
all of that. But Jonathan, this is uncharted territory, and you got the NCAA driving around on the interstate, and they don't know what lane to get in, they don't know how fast to go, and they don't know what exit to take. They truly are no clue at all right now. So you just hope, and of course LSU was at the forefront with the NIL, with Livy Dunn and all that, what they did in New York when it was launched. So, but let me tell you what, the price of poker and recruiting is going up appreciably.
Well, you mentioned, I mean, it's an arms race, and the conference with the most money, hands down, is the SEC. So, yeah, Texas, Oklahoma, they want to join. Of course, they have money to spend. They want to give some money. They want to make some money. But then you get the Florida States, the Clemsons of the world, and then, oh, yeah, Notre Dame, they're independent. Could they come in to be joining the SEC?
Oklahoma got a bunch of money, Ohio State. Look, and I'll tell you who else is going to really come back up. USC got a lot of that California money, and whether it's fair or not, it's the way. We did have a couple other recruits that took visits to Texas A&M, and one kid told me, A&M kid said, we got you over here because we've heard you have the recipe for ice. So speaking of that, the Aggie jokes will never stop. By the way, can you believe Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, 16 Super Conference? You expect them to get it done for 2023 or even quicker? They're saying 2025. There's
That's
no
not
way.
gonna happen. No,
There's no way
2025.
you get a divorce and sleep in the same house with your divorced wife for 4 years. It just doesn't happen.
No, I completely agree with that. 2023, I think, is a reasonable estimation of when it's going to happen. If it happens before that, I don't think anybody will be surprised.
Yeah.
2023, a good starting point. I mean, it just gives you 3 years to get everything in order. The NIL, there is going to be a lot to work out with this. Not only is it going to affect the players, but the parents, the recruiting, the boosters. It's going to affect a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of different outcomes that we couldn't foresee until it happened to us. And look, it's brand new. Like you mentioned, kids have been getting paid by the programs forever. It happens all over the country. But now when it's coming out in the public and you can see who you paid and how they represent themselves, if they get in a bar fight at college Tigers land, or if they say something derogatory to a coach or have some kind of domestic thing happen, look, there's just a lot of gray area in the NIL, which you're not going to know about until it happens. I mean, this is brand new territory for everybody.
I had an old timer of mine, and he called me up after the show, and he said, you know what? I'm glad you guys are talking about this, but he says, I just want to see some frickin' football.
No kidding.
And, of course, with the cases on the rise, specifically here in Louisiana, by the way, over here at Bayou Smokehouse, this is the first day of the mask mandate. You do need to wear a mask coming into our restaurant, but once you start ordering and drinking and eating, that's not a problem.
Same silly rules.
Same old rules, but here's what I'm getting to. I don't think it's feasible for them to check you at the gate if they ever want to know if you're vaccinated or not. So that being said, how are they going to check you? Are you going to do that on the website before to get in? And secondly, do we have the mask back? Now, outdoors is different with the mask than indoors. But are people going to the UCLA game in the Rose Bowl?
Right.
And we know that they've had a mask mandate indoors. But how's it going to – because that is what's going to drag me into serious depression with deja vu if we start going through that again. Look, I went to church this morning. It was the first time I had to put the mask on. I did it. I didn't have a problem with it. But it is uncomfortable, and it's kind of like my brain's going like, we're back to this again?
Right. Yep, old deja vu. Real quick, only have a couple minutes left. I want to talk some New Orleans Saints. Their first day in pads was yesterday, August 3rd. The intensity certainly picked up in practice, but the really big storyline is how do you replace Drew Brees, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill? I was told yesterday by a guy that went to practice that Jameis Winston had his best practice of any quarterback in the Saints uniform this season. The guy has matured. It seems as though he's matured a whole lot since he was his Tampa Bay Buccaneers days. Answering questions very articulately, understands the system, wants to live up to the legacy that Drew Brees and Sean Payton had built. I think it's a good situation for a young man to have an established offensive organization like the Saints with Pete Carmichael, with Sean Payton, with the guys that have been there, Curtis Johnson, wide receivers, for a very long time. They have a system, doesn't put too much pressure on Jameis Winston to be Drew Brees, just to do what he can do to help this team win. It's been intriguing, the quarterback battle for sure, but the Saints have a talented roster. I mean, this team was just a few plays away from winning the Super Bowl a couple years in the past, maybe 3 out of 4 of the last years. They were just a couple plays of going to that big game. A team that swept the Buccaneers in the regular season, of course, lost to them in the playoffs. The Buccaneers went on to win the Super Bowl. The Bucs returned Tom Brady. That's the NFC South.
They returned everybody.
NFC South is a very, very competitive division in the NFL league. But look, you look at the Saints roster. They return a lot of guys that helped them get to the playoffs. Defensively, they did lose some talent. They're trying to fill a cornerback spot. You know, Jack Rabbit left. They brought in Prince Amukamara, a guy that was a first-round pick many years back for the New York Giants. He was on the Cardinals practice team last season. Didn't get any game action last year, but a seasoned veteran, somebody that they believe is at least going to be a placeholder for their next cornerback. But man, in your opinion, how many games did the Saints win this season?
I think I'm looking at the Saints 9, maybe 10. By the way, who are they going to get to cover? Lattimore could have a suspension for some off-the-field problems he had in the offseason. But it's going to be fun. 17 games. Oh, by the way, the additional game, Tennessee Titans, so the NFL didn't. This is why I've got the Roger Goodell shirt tonight.
Yeah, Roger Goodell. I can assure you, as you can tell, Buddy Songy has not missed you at all. Of course, we all miss football, and we all appreciate you tuning in to Tigers Roar. Don't forget, check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Pelican Broadcasting. Catch us all there. We appreciate you watching. Have a good night.
See you next time.